In a packed Supreme Court, Judge John Roberts glares at Elon Musk, his laughter echoing. Musk, unyielding, fights a case that could reshape wealth and law. What he does next will shock the nation. The courtroom was a pressure cooker, air thick, with anticipation, as the nation's eyes fixed on the Supreme Court. At the center of the storm stood Elon Musk, the billionaire trailblazer, his sharp eyes scanning the room. Across from him, Chief Justice John Roberts presided, his gavel a scepter of authority. The case had ignited public frenzy. Musk, accused of manipulating Tesla's stock through a series of cryptic posts on X, faced charges of market manipulation brought by the Securities and Exchange Commission. The real-world context was stark. Musk's posts, often impulsive and provocative, had sent Tesla's stock on wild swings, costing investors billions while others reaped fortunes. The SEC, emboldened by years of Musk's defiance, sought to make an example of him, demanding unprecedented penalties and restrictions on his control over Tesla. Roberts, known for his measured demeanor, had a personal stake in the case's broader implications. Musk's wealth and influence, amplified by his ownership of X, challenged the legal system's ability to regulate titans who operated beyond traditional boundaries. Roberts, a staunch defender of institutional integrity, saw Musk's actions as a direct affront to the rule of law. His opening remarks cut like a blade. "Mr. Musk, your wealth does not place you above accountability," he said, his voice steady but laced with disdain. The gallery murmured, sensing the hostility. Musk, dressed in a tailored black suit, leaned forward, unfazed, his lips curling, into a faint smirk. The tension was palpable, a clash of titans unfolding before a riveted audience. The prosecution laid out its case with surgical precision. They presented a timeline of Musk's posts, each one a spark that ignited market chaos. One, a cryptic mention of funding secured at an absurdly high valuation, had sent Tesla shares soaring before plummeting. Another, a meme-laden jab at short sellers, triggered a frenzy of trading. The SEC argued Musk's influence on X gave him unchecked power to sway markets, a power he wielded recklessly. "This is not innovation," the lead prosecutor declared, pointing at Musk. "This is manipulation, plain and simple." The evidence was damning, a digital paper trail that painted Musk as a rogue operator. Musk's defense team countered with equal ferocity. They argued his posts were protected speech, a reflection of his unfiltered personality, not calculated schemes. "Elon Musk is a visionary, not a criminal," his attorney boomed. "Punishing him for speaking freely sets a dangerous precedent for every American." The argument resonated with Musk's supporters, who filled the courtroom's public seats, their murmurs of approval rippling through the room. Yet Roberts remained unmoved, his eyes narrowing as the defense spoke. He interrupted sharply. "Free speech does not grant a license to destabilize markets, counsel." The rebuke was a warning, and the room felt it. As the session wore on, the confrontation escalated. Roberts, growing visibly impatient, challenged Musk directly during a heated exchange. "Do you believe, Mr. Musk, that your wealth entitles you to rewrite the rules?" he asked, his tone icy. The question hung in the air, a gauntlet thrown. Musk, rising to the challenge, locked eyes with the Chief Justice. "I believe the rules should evolve with the times, Your Honor," he replied, his voice calm but defiant. A gasp swept the courtroom. Roberts leaned back, a rare chuckle escaping his lips, not of amusement, but of disbelief. "Evolve," he repeated, the word dripping with sarcasm. The laughter stung, a public dismissal of Musk's audacity. The exchange sent shockwaves beyond the courtroom. On X, posts exploded, some hailing Musk as a rebel against a rigged system, others condemning him as an arrogant oligarch. Cable news dissected every word, pundits debating whether Roberts' laughter was a sign of bias or justified scorn. The case was no longer just about market manipulation. It had become a referendum on wealth, power, and the law's ability to govern both. As the first day drew to a close, Musk stepped out of the courtroom, cameras flashing, his expression unreadable. Inside, Roberts prepared for the next session, his resolve hardening. The nation watched, divided and electrified, as the battle lines deepened. The Supreme Court reconvened under a storm of scrutiny, the air electric with unresolved tension from the previous day's clash. Outside, protesters clashed, some waving, signs proclaiming "Free Elon," others demanding "Justice for markets." Inside, Elon Musk sat at the defense table, his posture rigid, eyes scanning the room like a predator awaiting its moment. Chief Justice John Roberts, his face a mask of steely composure, presided over a courtroom that felt more like a coliseum. The nation, still reeling from Roberts' public laughter at Musk, hung on every word, sensing the case was teetering on a knife's edge. On X, the debate raged. Was Musk a hero defying an outdated system, or a reckless billionaire taunting the law? The day's proceedings began with the SEC intensifying its assault. The prosecution called a financial analyst to the stand, a grizzled veteran who dissected Musk's posts with clinical precision. Each post was a calculated move, the analyst testified, pointing to charts showing spikes in Tesla's stock synced with Musk's X activity. He knew the market would react, and he reveled in it. The testimony painted Musk as a puppet master, wielding his digital megaphone to bend markets to his will. The gallery stirred, some nodding in agreement, others whispering in defiance. Musk's expression remained inscrutable, but his fingers tapped restlessly on the table, betraying a flicker of agitation. Roberts seized the moment to press the prosecution's case further. "Are you suggesting, sir, that Mr. Musk's actions were not just reckless but intentional?" he asked the analyst, his voice sharp. The question was a trap, designed to cement the narrative of Musk as a deliberate saboteur. The analyst nodded gravely. "Absolutely, Your Honor. This was no accident." Roberts leaned back, satisfied, his gaze flicking to Musk as if daring him to respond. The Chief Justice's command of the room was absolute, but his focus on Musk felt personal, a vendetta cloaked in judicial robes. The public sensed it too. Posts on X accused Roberts of bias, while others praised his resolve to hold the powerful accountable. Musk's defense team, sensing the tide turning, fought back with a bold move. They called a surprise witness, a former SEC official who had clashed with Musk years earlier over similar charges. The witness, now retired, stunned the courtroom by admitting the agency's pursuit of Musk felt personal at times. "We were under pressure to rein him in, to show the world billionaires aren't untouchable," she said. The revelation was a bombshell, suggesting the SEC's case was less about justice and more about settling scores. Roberts' face tightened, his gavel hovering as if itching to silence the testimony. The defense pressed further, arguing the SEC's vendetta violated Musk's rights. "This is a witch hunt," Musk's attorney declared, pointing at the prosecution. "They're punishing innovation because they can't control it." The courtroom erupted, in murmurs, forcing Roberts to slam his gavel. "Order!" he barked, but his composure was fraying. He turned to Musk, his voice low but venomous. "Mr. Musk, your counsel seems to believe you're a victim. Do you share that view?" The question was a challenge, a public test of Musk's nerve. Musk rose, his presence commanding despite the weight of the moment. "I believe, Your Honor, that progress always provokes resistance," he said, his tone measured but defiant. "The CC fears what they can't predict." The words were a direct jab, not just at the prosecution but at Roberts himself, whose commitment to precedent clashed with Musk's relentless push for disruption. The exchange ignited the room. Reporters scribbled furiously while spectators whispered in shock. Roberts' eyes narrowed, his silence more menacing than any retort. He adjourned the session abruptly, leaving the courtroom buzzing with speculation. Outside, Musk faced a swarm of cameras, his cryptic comment, "The truth will out," fueling endless analysis. On X, the hashtag Musk vs. Roberts trended, with posts dissecting every glance and word. Cable news panels grew heated, some arguing Roberts was overstepping, others insisting Musk's arrogance demanded a reckoning. The case was exposing cracks in the legal system, raising questions about whether wealth could ever be tamed by laws written for a less stratified world. As night fell, Musk retreated to his hotel, plotting his next move, while Roberts pored over case files, his resolve unshaken, but tested. The nation watched, breathless, knowing the next day could redefine the boundaries of power and justice. Dawn broke over Washington, the Supreme Court looming like a fortress under siege. The city buzzed with anticipation. The clash between Elon Musk and Chief Justice John Roberts now a cultural flashpoint. Musk, sequestered in his hotel, had spent the night strategizing with his team, his mind racing with ways to turn the tide. Roberts, meanwhile, had barely slept, his desk littered with legal texts as he prepared to steer the case toward a precedent-setting ruling. The nation, glued to screens and X feeds, sensed the courtroom was a powder keg, ready to explode with the next exchange. The question on every mind: could Musk outmaneuver the law, or would Roberts' iron grip prevail? The courtroom filled early, the air thick with unease. Musk entered, his face a mask of determination, his usual swagger tempered by the weight of the moment. Roberts took his seat, his expression unreadable but his eyes locked on Musk, a hunter sizing up his prey. The SEC, emboldened by the previous day's momentum, opened with a new tactic. A parade of small investors who claimed Musk's posts had wiped out their savings. One, a retired teacher, choked back tears as she described losing her nest egg after a Musk-induced stock plunge. "He plays with our lives like it's a game," she said, her voice trembling. The testimony was a gut punch, humanizing the case and shifting the narrative from abstract markets to real-world pain. Musk's team objected fiercely, arguing the witnesses were anecdotal and irrelevant. But Roberts overruled them with a curt wave. "The court will hear the impact of Mr. Musk's actions," he said, his tone final. The rebuke stung, and Musk's jaw tightened, his frustration palpable. The SEC pressed its advantage, projecting Musk's posts on a screen, each one now paired with stories of financial ruin. The strategy was clear: paint Musk as a callous billionaire, indifferent to the collateral damage of his digital provocations. The gallery was riveted, some spectators glaring at Musk, others whispering in his defense. The defense countered with a risky move, calling a tech ethicist to argue that Musk's posts were part of a broader cultural shift toward transparency. In business, Elon Musk communicates directly with the public, bypassing gatekeepers, the expert said. Punishing him risks stifling innovation. The argument was cerebral, appealing to ideals of free expression, but it struggled against the emotional weight of the SEC's witnesses. Roberts, visibly skeptical, interrupted. "Are you suggesting, Professor, that market stability should be sacrificed for unfiltered communication?" The question was laced with disdain, and the expert faltered, unable to bridge the gap between theory and reality. The tension peaked when Musk himself took the stand, a decision that stunned the room. His attorney had warned against it, but Musk insisted, determined to confront Roberts directly. Under oath, he was composed but unapologetic. "I post what I believe," he said, his voice steady. "If markets overreact, that's their flaw, not mine." The statement was vintage Musk, bold, defiant, and divisive. The SEC's cross-examination was brutal, dissecting his words for intent. "Did you know your posts would move markets?" the prosecutor demanded. Musk leaned forward, his eyes blazing. I know they listen. I don't control what they do. Roberts, seizing the moment, leaned in. Mr. Musk, you seem to believe your influence absolves you of responsibility, he said, his voice low but cutting. Do you think the law bends to your vision of the future? The question was a challenge, a direct assault on Musk's worldview. The courtroom held its breath as Musk paused, then met Roberts' gaze. The law should serve progress, Your Honor, not shackle it, he replied, his words a gauntlet thrown. A murmur swept the room, some in awe, others in outrage. Roberts' face darkened, his silence more ominous than any retort. He adjourned the session abruptly, leaving the confrontation unresolved. Outside, the world erupted. X was a battlefield of hashtags. Musk fights back versus Roberts rules, while news outlets replayed the exchange endlessly. Pundits debated whether Musk's testimony was a masterstroke or a misstep, and whether Roberts' pointed questions betrayed bias. The case was exposing the legal system's struggle to govern a world reshaped by wealth and technology, fueling calls for reform. As Musk and Roberts prepared for the final day, the stakes were clear. The outcome would ripple far beyond the courtroom, challenging the very foundations of justice. The final day of the Supreme Court showdown dawned with a nation on edge. The clash between Elon Musk and Chief Justice John Roberts, now a global spectacle, was ablaze with polarized fervor, hashtags dueling as fiercely as the courtroom adversaries. Protesters swarmed the courthouse steps, their chants a cacophony of support and condemnation. Inside, the chamber was a crucible, every seat filled, every eye fixed on the two men whose confrontation had come to symbolize a broader struggle: the law versus unbridled wealth. Musk, entering with a steely glint in his eye, radiated defiance. Roberts, taking his place, exuded authority, his face etched with the weight of a decision that would echo for generations. The session opened with closing arguments, the SEC delivering a scathing indictment. Elon Musk treats markets as his personal playground, the prosecutor thundered, pointing at Musk. His wealth cannot shield him from accountability. The words were a rallying cry, urging Roberts to uphold the law's sanctity. The gallery stirred, some nodding, others glaring at Musk, who sat motionless, his expression unreadable. The defense countered with equal passion, framing Musk as a victim of a system unprepared for his disruptive genius. Punish him, and you punish progress, his attorney declared, voice rising. The law must evolve, not cling to outdated norms. The argument was a direct challenge to Roberts, whose commitment to precedent had defined his tenure. Roberts listened in silence, his gaze shifting between the attorneys and Musk. When the arguments concluded, he leaned forward, his voice measured, but commanding. This case is not merely about market manipulation, he began, the room hanging on his words. It is about whether the law can govern those who reshape our world. His eyes locked on Musk, a silent acknowledgement of the stakes. The Chief Justice's tone grew sharper as he addressed Musk directly. Your vision, Mr. Musk, does not grant you immunity, but neither should the law stifle those who push humanity forward. The words were a tightrope, balancing accountability with progress, and the courtroom held its breath. The ruling came swiftly, a masterstroke of judicial nuance. Roberts found Musk liable for market manipulation, imposing a substantial fine, but rejecting the SEC's demand to strip him of Tesla's leadership. The law applies equally, Roberts declared, but it must also adapt. He mandated stricter oversight of Musk's public statements, a compromise that neither fully vindicated nor condemned him. The decision was a jolt, satisfying neither Musk's ardent supporters nor his fiercest critics. Musk rose, his face a mix of relief and resolve, while Roberts' gavel fell, sealing the outcome. The courtroom erupted in gasps and whispers, the weight of the moment sinking in. As Musk exited, cameras swarmed, capturing his cryptic nod to the crowd. "The future keeps moving," he said, his voice steady, sparking a frenzy of interpretation. Roberts, retreating to his chambers, knew the ruling would be dissected for years. On X, reactions poured in. Some hailed the fine as justice served. Others decried it as a slap on the wrist. News anchors pivoted to analysis, questioning whether the ruling exposed the legal system's limits or proved its resilience. The case had ignited a firestorm of debate, with lawmakers already drafting proposals to address the influence of wealth on markets. Pundits argued over Roberts' intent. Was his ruling a pragmatic balance or a concession to power? In the weeks that followed, the nation grappled with the verdict's implications. Musk, undeterred, doubled down on his vision, announcing new Tesla initiatives while complying grudgingly with the court's oversight. His supporters rallied, framing the outcome as a triumph of innovation over bureaucracy. Critics, meanwhile, pointed to the fine as evidence that wealth could soften justice, fueling calls for systemic reform. Legal scholars praised Roberts for threading the needle, crafting a ruling that upheld the law while acknowledging a changing world. Yet others saw it as a missed opportunity to rein in unchecked power. The case became a cultural touchstone, sparking discussions in boardrooms, classrooms, and living rooms. It exposed the tension between traditional legal structures and the realities of extreme wealth, prompting bipartisan efforts to modernize market regulations. Musk and Roberts, though never meeting again, had reshaped the national conversation, their confrontation a reminder that justice, like progress, is a work in progress. As the dust settled, the nation moved forward, divided but galvanized, ready to confront the challenges of a new era.